My wet nose chums, and today we're going to continue on with our talk about the dating of the Exodus story and when a historical Exodus may have taken place. Now, we're going to be talking about the early date, the 15th century date, and we'll talk about the pros and cons, the evidence for and against. So let's start with why people may place the Exodus in the 15th century. Now, when we're looking at a plain reading of the text, this may be difficult because, as we said last time, one of the big components for why people date the Exodus to the time of Ramesses is the city of Pithom and Pi-Ramesses. However, we do have evidence of the sites of these cities being used earlier. So we can potentially say that these are later inclusions of these updated names for the same general location of the city. Now, the main component for why we would go looking at the Bible and find a date for the mid-15th century for the date of the Exodus comes from 1 Kings. In telling of the building of Solomon's temple, it says that this occurred 480 years after the Exodus. Now, the building of the temple occurs in 966 BCE, which would place the Exodus in around 1446 BCE, assuming that we took these numbers as being literal. It is a 12 times 40, which in general, when you're looking at the Bible, you would generally take these as symbolic numbers rather than necessarily literal numbers. So, most scholars would go, well, if it was a bit off, you're not going to be too concerned. They may be more symbolic than literal. Secondly, there is a verse in Judges that says that Jephthah ruled 300 years after the Exodus. Now, if he's ruling in around about 1100 BCE, it would place the Exodus in around 1400 BCE. Again, we're looking at around about the same time frame. This evidence also fits when we look at Jericho. Now, as I said yesterday when we were talking about some of the evidence against the Ramesside dating, Jericho is thought to have been destroyed, or the major city of Jericho, with its big walls tumbling down, in the 15th century. So this fits a lot better with this earlier date for the Exodus. Josephus also places the Exodus in this period when he is writing in the 1st century CE. Now he's responding to Egyptian historian Manetho in regards to what he is saying, but he places it potentially in the reign of Amenhotep. Which Amenhotep can be debated a bit. Is it the first? Is it second? Third? There's a few of them. But we usually go with around about the second because that would place it in this mid 15th century BCE. So that is the major evidence for why we might be looking at this period as the potential time for the Exodus. Now, as with the Ramesside period, this is potentially problematic. First off, Egypt has a big presence in Canaan during this period and well into the 19th dynasty. So it does feel a little off that there is no mention of Egyptians when we talk about the conquest. At no point during the conquest are we coming up against Egyptians in any of these places. That's despite the fact that Egypt had quite a number of vassal states as well as forts and garrisons in Canaan during this time. So that's one argument against this period. The second is we simply do not have any evidence of a large-scale group leaving Egypt at this time. Again, if we are to take the Book of Numbers as a literal account, it would say about 1 million people left. And there is simply just not the evidence for that, or we haven't found the evidence for that. So that is the major element against it. We also do not have a lot of evidence of people groups, and particularly a people group this large, wandering anywhere in the wilderness at this time. Whether you're talking about the Sinai Peninsula or into, say, the more area of Saudi Arabia and others. So that is our major element against this dating. We do have evidence of Semitic people as slaves in Egypt at this time. They are not widespread, again, similar to the Ramesside period. We have some evidence of people with Semitic names, but we don't have large lists of them, so we can't say whether they were widespread or not. So that is the evidence for the 15th century. It's, I would say, slightly better than the evidence for the later period. However, it is still not a smoking gun, and it doesn't quite fit all of the things that we are looking for in the story of the Exodus. So there you go, the more you know. Now follow along, like, subscribe, all of those good things if you want to know more about the Bible and its history with me, Bear.